Hello and welcome to the Milltown Way, the independent Shamrock Rovers podcast covering all things hoops. I'm your host Ryan Brennan, and today we have a few things to discuss. So we will start at Tolka Park with Shamrock Rovers 2-1 defeat to Shelbourne. We'll also be discussing Pico Lopes and Cape Verde ahead of their World Cup campaign, beginning with Spain. That takes place tomorrow evening. We'll also take a look at the Champions League draws that take place midweek as well. And then, of course, we'll finalise the episode with looking ahead to the trip to Waterford next Friday at the RSC Stadium. But first, I'll start it off at Tolka Park, and that was, of course, Rovers in their first game back after the break, 2-1 defeat to Shelbourne, a disappointing defeat at that. And yeah, look, it's given a lot of mixed reviews, I suppose. I've seen people kind of comment and say that was well deserved, that Rovers didn't deserve to get anything from the game. I've seen people say that was one of the best performances and Rovers just didn't have the end product. So it's definitely sparked a wide range of opinions, and that's football, and that's exactly what it's meant to do, I suppose, in one avenue or in one respect. But yeah, look, overall it was a disappointing result, and Rovers could have extended their lead to six consecutive Dublin Derby victories this season, which would have been obviously an impressive feat in itself, but it wasn't to be on the night. And I think, look, if you whether you were in the away end, in Tolka Park, or whether you're watching it at home on Virgin Media too, I think either way, I think whatever way you looked at that, you probably thought it was bound to be a defeat. I don't think, or at least a drop in a point. I don't think you could really look at that and be overly enthused, or at any point maybe think that Rovers were going to go on and win it. When Rovers got the equaliser through Adam Brennan, I don't know. Personally, I didn't think. I don't know. I couldn't see Rovers kicking on and winning, going on and winning the game eventually. But look, obviously 10 minutes later, then they go and yeah, look, they fall behind, and inevitably then that turns out to be the winner. I know there's been a few critics or bit of criticism gone Ed McGinty's way for the goals as well, and maybe it's a fair bit of criticism in one regard. He probably should do better, particularly with that goal from Odebeko. And look, obviously he doesn't save it at his near post. It does come out a bullet pace. It's going to be an issue, and who would be a goalkeeper really? It's one of the most scrutinised positions probably in the game, essentially. But yeah, I think look, the feeling was that it was just, look, of course, disappointing that Rovers did come away with nothing from Talca Park. And yeah, look, what I think was probably more frustrating, definitely from my perspective, and even a few people around me in the ground, was that, like, did Shelbourne look overly good? Did they look, they didn't, is the fact of the matter. They didn't. Rovers weren't played off the park in any respect. It was a game that was there for the taking, but it just didn't look, I don't think, like Rovers were gonna go on and kick on. Shells have 2 shots on target, 2 goals, 6 shots in total. That kind of tells the story in itself. As I said, McGinty, yeah, look, he should have done better in the game. Probably should have done better for both of the goals. And inevitably he's a little bit flat. I think he's caught flat-footed, particularly that first goal, the header across from, he looks flat-footed, so it requires nearly an extra step across to his right to try to stop it from going into the bottom corner. And because he seemed to be flat-footed, he doesn't make it then, and Shell take the lead through that headed effort. And I don't know, it was just, yeah, look, it seemed to kind of come out of nowhere. It was disappointing, of course. Look, it was. There was moments from Rovers, particularly in the first half, sustained pressure, and it led to chances being created. Particularly there was a moment for Aaron Green. He had a good opportunity and he doesn't take it. But yeah, look, it just, again, inevitably, it's just a feeling of disappointment for Rovers. Um, Aaron Green's first chance as well in the 22nd minute, that was in the first half, and you looked at that and maybe thought he had to score and he didn't. And yeah, look, it's one of those nights. You come away and you kind of maybe move on quite quickly. Rovers they'll be turning their attention quite quickly to Waterford this coming Friday. Um, yeah, it's just disappointing really to lose, and particularly to lose to Shelbourne. It's as I said on the last episode, Dublin derbies, they're like cup finals throughout the season. These come consecutively, So and they'll continue to do that when they come back around. Of having bows, pats, and shells all in succession. So yeah, when they come thick and fast for Rovers at the moment. And yeah, so when they do, you want to get the results, and they were doing that until Friday night, and then they lose, and they don't uh, they don't punish Shelbourne for Shelbourne not weren't impressive really, but that's such as football. I thought there was a particular moment there about half an hour after about half an hour in the first half, and Rovers played out of danger, but and it was like look, it's a neat few consecutive passes strung together. I think it's between Healy and Grace, maybe one other. But at the same breath, I thought they've just played themselves out of danger. But just before they played themselves into danger. They didn't. I think they were putting themselves under unnecessary pressure at times, and it didn't need to be the case. And that was leading to them having to play out like that, and quick passes in succession, of course. And I think I don't know. It was there was just moments where I think the common feeling amongst that away and was just that this was unnecessary, and it didn't help then Shelbourne, as I said, not being overly impressed with themselves, thinking this doesn't need to be the way Rovers are going throughout the game, and they do. Um, then there was about, I think it was like even the goal itself, we talk about that. Rovers falling behind after about 34 minutes. It was it all stemmed from Rovers' attack as well. Rovers have the ball on the edge of Shell's box. Graham Burke, he loses possession. Um, then it leads to a counter attack, and Odebeko, he uh he makes a darting run from the left wing. If you notice, then straight into the centre, unchallenged. Unchallenged, and then you have Harry Wood then picking up possession, and you got to give him space. You're gonna get punished. That's gonna be the case every single time, and that's exactly what happened. Harry Wood then back to Evan Caffrey, and Rovers find themselves behind, and even just look, as I say, common feeling amongst that away end seems to just be like, how did that just happen? Counter attack, and as I said, Rovers were the better team. Shells didn't look overly impressive at any point, and yeah, all of a sudden you find yourself 1-0 down, and that's what happens when you don't take chances, and when you don't, or when you're trying to create the chance and allowing a counter attack and allowing Odebeko to charge across from left wing to the middle of the park, and then giving Harry Wood space. This is what's going to happen. Um, One thing I noticed through the left wing for Rovers as well was that Milan and Bang of Shelbourne was obviously, I think he was getting the better of Adam Brennan quite a bit throughout, mainly the first half, not so much the second half, but yeah, I think Adam Brennan struggled big time in that first half, and even it was at one point Brennan and Mulroney switched flanks to see if Mulroney could get anything out of him, Bang, because it didn't seem like Adam Brennan was able to. Um, Look, obviously he inevitably gets the equaliser, so there's that. But I thought, I even made a note at half time. I thought maybe Brennan should have been withdrawn. Not look. Obviously, look, everyone has bad performances, and you play through it, and sometimes you come out the other end of it, and obviously he gets the goal. But I don't know. I think overall still had a mixed night. It wasn't his best performance, and look, it's gonna be the case. He's a young lad, and he's shown he's well capable of putting in top performances. But I don't know. I think he did struggle on Friday for large parts. Look, he did well as well, and there's definitely moments I'll get onto where he does do well. Particularly there was one moment where he makes a counter attack and run. And yeah, it leads to a positive bit of play. But yeah, overall, I thought he did have a bit of a mixed night, I think. Um, then you have about, I think it's not long before half time. Jake Mulroney delivers a good ball. Spiel pawns it out cross, and then it falls to Adam Brennan again. He missed that opportunity right in front of goal. It was like within the 6 yard box or so, and that also led to my thought process of kind of maybe he should be getting taken off at half time. It just seemed like it maybe might not have been one of those nights, where these things can get the better if it's not going his way, and particularly if you're in that case, sometimes you're not getting the better of your man. Where I don't think he was getting the better of him. Bang that. I think, I think it can lead to your confidence being shot in different areas of your game. Maybe on another, if he's given another chance, he scores that goal. But yeah, look, I think overall, so yeah, he slightly struggled, and then a couple of minutes before stoppage time of the first half, Adam Brennan he's outside the box. He turns blindly, gets dispossessed, and it leads to a Shelbourne free kick. That's like near the edge of the box again. So there's moments there that yeah, look, he might have just been struggling to get the grips with the game. You think as well that a good few of the lads wouldn't have been training as much with Rovers over the 2 week break. McGinty, Brennan, two of them, and Matt Healy, obviously being away with in the Ireland camp for that Canada friendly. To only get 3 minutes for Adam Brennan, still still sour over that because that was ridiculous. But yeah, they're obviously then away from Stephen Bradley and Shamrock Rovers, so the training camp. So yeah, they might not have been training as much over the that break, and then it probably does change things slightly. Coming back from the break, and yeah, maybe that's what we saw on Friday night between McGinty, you know, struggling for the two goals, and Adam Brennan maybe struggling in parts or patches throughout the night. Maybe that's a result of it. But then look, second half starts. Obviously Rovers are 1-0 down at the break. Second half, then not too far into the second half. Adam Brennan, he makes an interception and a dart and run down that left wing and draws a free kick. That's the moment that I was talking about just a couple of minutes ago. So that led to maybe thinking, okay, he's got into the dressing room, and things have changed. And they did, as I said, second half definitely did for the better. But just as I said, still moments where he did struggle. Um, then not probably a minute later or so, Jake Mulroney has a missed chance. He mistimes his header. But look, that's a ball that's fizzed across the box. It's coming at pace. It's not by no means a guaranteed header that everyone should be scoring. I think it's one of them that can easily be going. As look at what happened with Mulroney, mistimes the header. I know he kind of gets in a bit of gets a bit of slack at times, and he was getting it again on Friday, particularly one person beside me giving him flack the whole game, and I thought it was a little bit unjust. Thought he did put in a decent performance on Friday, and yeah, look, it didn't ultimately fully pay off. He did get the assist for the goal, of course, but look, obviously Rovers don't get the result, so that is the way it went. But then in my notes from the game as well, I had obviously look, the ball comes in from Jack Byrne, Mulroney heads it across the kind of the edge of the box. Adam Brennan hits it first time in the edge, and yeah, obviously look, the ball goes in the net, and in my notes maybe he shouldn't have been subbed. That's why I'm not a manager. Yeah, Adam Brennan, look, he levels the game, and I said there was still urgency then, and obviously look, Rovers trying to kick on. I know obviously look, 10 minutes later they did concede a second goal, but I still didn't think at that point, right, Rovers are going to go on and win this game. It just didn't. I don't know. Maybe it just didn't look like they're getting going. Yeah, I don't know. It just well, maybe one of them nights wasn't to be. Look, that's the way it is. 5 minutes after the goal, then a great ball from Jake Mulroney. Brennan heads it across the 6 yard box, but it was Spiel again to come and collect, and that's again, maybe a slightly more common team than what we would like to admit as well. Look, yeah, look, I think Rovers probably could have been better in that final third yet again. That's just the way it is. And then look again, five more minutes later, and Rovers find themselves yet behind yet again for the second time in the night, and the last goal that would inevitably be of the game. Uh, Odebeko just charges down the left wing. There's nice bit of passage of play, and Rovers are like literally millimeters. I think Jack Byrne lunges in, nearly intercepts it, and stops that counter attack from happening that led to the goal. Doesn't get there, and then Odebeko's just charging down kind of the left wing, left side of the pitch. It's not necessarily left wing. And Sabawali's getting caught out, kind of fakes to cut back out on his left foot, hits such pace, and yeah, look, Shelbourne are back in front and go 2-1 ahead, and yeah, look, I know, as I said, critics are out for Ed McGinty, not saving at his near post, and yeah, maybe he should have done better. But look, it's just, as I said, it's the most scrutinised position really of the pitch. But I do think, I don't know, I know. Look, he probably should do better. Look, that's the fact of the matter. He should do better for the goal and for the first one. However, there's the job of 10 other players in front of them is to stop that from happening. Maybe not so much, your strikers and so on, but there's still 10 other players there before it gets to Ed McGinty. So while he's you kind of getting done by Otabeko, and I know he's 1-on-1, so he can kind of go anywhere, and he doesn't want to lunge in, end up maybe picking up a red card, or giving away a penalty and a red card. It's all understandable, and as I said, McGinty should do better, but I think defensively Rovers are caught out and caught sleeping a little bit. I know they're kind of camped well in Shelbourne's half as well. That leads to it's the ingredients was there for Shelbourne to get a counter, and they do. But, Rovers are obviously near the halfway line or so. And yeah, get caught out, and as I said, there's just millimeters between maybe Jack Byrne getting a touch on the ball and stops a counter attack, but it didn't happen. Shelbourne go up the other end and score, and yeah, it was just the way it was. I thought then about last 15 or so that there was a moment where Jack Byrne, then he delivers the ball into Michael Noonan, he heads it over. Again, there was people around that were thinking he should do better there. Less than 10 minutes less than 10 minutes to go, and Otabeko was in again, and he gets 2 stabs at, and it doesn't go in, but Rovers were lucky in that moment not to go 3-1 behind. And then it gets later in the game, and Rovers applied more pressure. Enda Stevens delivers a ball, and then Danny Grant has his attempt blocked, and then I think that leads to a corner, and that's when the away end kind of they're getting chances like that cause then a bit more an increase in the volume, maybe getting excited at the top. Maybe this won't head for defeat, and there might be a draw, or even more if time allowed, and it wasn't to be. Then there was one particular moment, just a couple of minutes later, Danny Grant, he's out on the right wing, and he cuts in, and he beat about 2 or 3 players, and thought he maybe should have shot himself, because he might have gotten so much confidence from that passage that he had. He looked like he was untouchable. He feeds Adam Brennan, then he skies it, and it just leads to that's the kind of heads dropping then of maybe that should have been better, or should be better. The chance not taken. Then stoppage time, you have Najrazi feeds Jack Byrne, and ends up being a mistake, because he just ends up skying that as well, and that goes out for a goal kick. I plenty of people shouting around me to say that Najrazi should have been the one to take the cross. Doesn't always have to be feeding to Jack Byrne, and probably you'd agree really. Overall, I thought it was a poor performance. I think Rovers, I won't say they got what they deserved. I don't think maybe they deserved to be beaten, will be my opinion from the game. Everyone has their own. But there was, they lacked urgency quite a bit throughout that game. I will say that much. Particularly when, in the latter stages of the game, I thought, this is Rovers are getting beaten here if they don't kind of pick it up a bit, and again, it's just a little bit slow, and I don't know. I just think, it's Dublin Derby. You're 2-1 behind against Shelbourne. I don't think you need much more motivation to charge up the pitch and try get an equaliser at least, and then sure, if there's enough time, press on and try get a winner. I know obviously you had Ed McGinty even coming up for a couple of the set pieces as well. So it wasn't to be for on the night, and Rovers are beaten by Shelbourne 2-1. It was disappointing. First time since February 24 that Shells had beaten Rovers in Tolka Park as well. Rovers of course stay top of the league. They're 5 points clear of Pats. Pats do have a game in hand, so inevitably that's essentially really a 2-point lead. If you're going to act on the side of caution, to say that Pats will win their game in hand. Pats will have another game in hand soon as well, so that will increase it. They'll end up having 2 games in hand over us. Obviously, it depends on Rovers in points wise how Rovers do in that game. But they will, because Rovers are going to play their other game that stems from that second leg of European football. That's why they played Bows on that Monday night. And that's why they'll be playing soon enough as well. And on another Monday night slot, when they play Derry City, that's Monday week. So Pats will end up having 2 games in hand over Rovers, but look, they still sit top of the table. And going to Waterford next Friday, which we will get on to. That won't be easy. It wasn't easy last time, 1-1 draw and easily could have been beaten on that night as well. And yeah, Pats host Sligo in Richmond, and Bows host Dundalk in Dalymount as well. So definitely, yeah, tough games across the board. But yeah, we'll leave it there for the Shelbourne defeat. As I said, disappointing performance. I thought overall quite more so a poor performance, but yeah, I don't think maybe the main reason I don't think Rovers really deserved to be beaten was more so what Shelbourne didn't do, and that I thought was that Shelbourne weren't overly impressive. They didn't stand. When I say overly impressive, I don't think they were impressive. Essentially, I think it's two big moments they get. It leads to two goals, and yeah, look, that's football. Fine margins, moments, as Stephen Bradley mentions, and that's what won Joey O'Brien's side of the game, and that's the way it is. But look, as I said, we'll move it on, and we'll move it on to the World Cup. Tomorrow evening Irish time, 5 p.m. Spain take on Cape Verde. Shamrock Rovers skipper Pico Lopes will be in action. Everyone at the Milltown Way wishes Pico Lopes the best of luck as well. Yeah, it's a huge game. The club put out a message from like nearly every player. I think nearly every player. I can't think of too many missing from it. Wishing Pico Lopes the best of luck. Obviously, as you might have seen on the news, that his family will be over, including his wife, and all the family. They'll be over in America, following him around in a camper van, which is it's really nice to see. And yeah, look, he'll be only delighted with that too. Um, yeah, it's deserved for Pico. He's been tremendous for Rovers throughout his time, and yeah, now he's getting recognised on an international stage. And look, he wouldn't have had this moment if it wasn't for responding to a LinkedIn message. When you think about that story as well, if you haven't, I'm sure. Look, if you're a Rovers fanatic, that you'll have heard that story 10 times over. But if you haven't, go check it out. Of how Pico Lopes came about, representing Cape Verde on the national stage. But yeah, look, they have a big game against Spain. Not an easy way to start the competition. But look, you have to. That's what happens when you're out on that world stage of being at the World Cup. Look, unfortunately, Pico Lopes is the only Irishman that will be at the World Cup. Because Ireland won't be there themselves. But yeah, look, I think it's a fantastic opportunity for him to get over there and to play in the World Cup on the biggest stage of them all. Look, it's what every player dreams of, and it's something that he's getting to live out. And yeah, playing up against Spain, who are one of course, the competition's favourites. And yeah, look, he'd be up against the likes of Ferran Torres, Lamine Yamal, of course, Nico Williams. All I can say is best of luck to them lads trying to get past Pico Lopes. They're going to have a tough job on their hands. But yeah, that's a 5 p.m. kickoff as well. So do look, if you can, watch that. I know some people probably might be still be in work, but try get it on a computer or something. It'll be definitely worth it. To see, look, it's fantastic to see Shamrock Rovers captain on the biggest stage. And he'll be playing as well. It's not even a case of that he's just there as a squad player or anything like that. He's going to be there and he's going to play. He's probably going to play nearly every minute. Again, which is crazy to think of Shamrock Rovers captain playing for Cape Verde at the World Cup. Yeah, look, it's a dream come true. It's in the Atlanta Stadium as well, in Atlanta, Georgia, of course. But yeah, it's 5 p.m. kickoff, Irish time, so do make sure you watch that as well. It's on RTE as well if you're looking on how to watch it. RTE2, as I said, it is the 5 p.m. kickoff, so do make sure you watch that. They're in the group with Uruguay and Saudi Arabia as well. And actually, well, no, it won't be. I was going to say by the time we're recording the next episode, he'll play this next game, but he won't, because we'll be recording after the Waterford game next Friday, and they play next Sunday against Uruguay. So, yeah, look, we'll discuss that as well. But yeah, look, as I said, everyone at the Milltown Way wishes Pico nothing but the best of luck. It's a fantastic honour for him and his family, and for the club, for Shamrock Rovers, that he's getting over there to be recognised on a national stage. And yeah, look, it's an absolute honour for him, and it's an honour for the club to have a player like him in the books and look, playing at the biggest competition of them all. It's yeah, look, it's fantastic. But yeah, we'll leave it there. We'll move it on to more Rovers action, and that is, of course, that this Tuesday at 1 p.m. it's been confirmed that the UEFA Champions League first qualifying round draw will take place. That's obviously getting up and running yet again, which is crazy to think, really. It's one in one regard you're thinking the Champions League and the season's just ended, and all of a sudden the qualifier draws are back. But yeah, that's look, it's obviously such a big day for Rovers in the calendar as well. Just to bear in mind as well when the draw. So obviously the draw takes place on Tuesday. As I said, 1 p.m. Probably be 1:30. Knowing them draws by the time they take place. So obviously normally a big presentation and the whole lot, and people on stage just shaking hands. But yeah, the first leg will take place on either the 7th or the 8th of July, and the second leg will take place on the 14th or 15th of July. So obviously we don't know what leg with Rovers will be at home at either, and obviously we don't know who they'll be up against. It will be broken up into groups. So by the time the draw comes around, we'll know exactly. It would be one of five teams. Normally, it's in the round that five teams that they'll come up against. One of the five. But at the moment, there's still a possible 14 sides that they could play, and the list is Interclub de Scalde. I'm gonna go with pronouncing. Of Andorra, Levski Sofia of Bulgaria, Ararat Armenia, of course Armenia, Kauno Salgiri, I'm gonna say Lithuania, Sutjeska of Montenegro, Ito Györ of Hungary, Iberia 1999 of Georgia, Ignatia of Albania, Floriana of Malta, Tre Fiori of San Marino, Verde of North Macedonia, ML Vitsbek, I'm going to say with Belarus, and Atert Bisen of Luxembourg. I've probably butchered the pronunciation of nearly every club there. However, look, I'm not from them countries. I don't necessarily know how to pronounce them, but I'm sure we'll know when the draw comes around. And yeah, look, as I said, it's a big one on the calendar. I will just to note as well, while we're on the topic as well, the FAI Cup second round tie with Cork City was confirmed for Friday, July 17th at 8 p.m. In Tallaght Stadium. I don't know why that was put there. That makes no sense to me because it was saying subject to FIFA or UEFA fixtures. Obviously you hinge it on Rovers being in European action, but it's guaranteed they're going to be in European action. It's the first round of the Champions League qualifiers, and it's the second leg that week, the midweek of it. So even if Rovers are on a Tuesday, I don't think that game will be going ahead on the Friday. So I don't we're all suspecting that's going to be Sunday 5 p.m. or so, or Sunday at some time. So yeah, I don't really get why they've confirmed that for Friday at 8 p.m. But they did. As I said, the draw takes place for the Champions League on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Do note as well, so the second round of all the competitions as well will take place on the Wednesday. I don't think they've confirmed the time yet, but that will take place on Wednesday. They always do the first round and the second round a day apart. One thing to note as well, if you're going to plan on watching them live, as I said, 1 p.m. Tuesday is the Champions League. It's the only one you need to be concerned about, of course, for Rovers. However, Wednesday, the second round draws take place, and the ones that Rovers' name will be tied or associated with is the Champions League second round, of course, should they make it, or the Conference League second round if they're eliminated from the Champions League first round. So they will be Rovers will be in the half for them two draws on Wednesday. As I said, I would suspect it'd be around a similar time of 1 p.m. or so. However, just if you do, as I said, if you do want to watch them live to see who Rovers could be potentially facing in Europe, Wednesday they'll be in two draws. That's of course, as I said, Champions League and Conference League. Tuesday's just Champions League for the champions of Ireland, Shamrock Rovers. That's why they're there. But yeah, as I said, I listed out the names. As I said, probably didn't pronounce one right, but such as European football. And we'll discuss it as well then who we got in the next episode as well. But I'll leave it at that for European talk as well. And we'll move it on to next Friday, and that is of course Shamrock Rovers making the trip to Waterford in the RSC Stadium. Big crowd expected in the away end. Probably, I think it's near enough sold out, if not sold out. And normally it does end up selling out anyways by the time either it comes around, or very much, as I say, close enough to kick off. It's always a good trip to go to Waterford as well. So yeah, it's a big game as it is. But yeah, look, and it's not too far away either compared to your Galways or your Sligos or your Derrys, But yeah, look, as I said, it is a big game. Waterford will come in with a bit of confidence now. They're on the back of beating Sligo 4-0 on Friday night, which was huge for them as well, bear in mind. So they still sit bottom of the table, but after their very poor start to the season, even not just the start, because they didn't win their first game until recent. But yeah, they do still sit at the bottom, but they're 5 points off Sligo, who are ninth. Um, yeah, so look, I think Waterford will be. They'll have no reason to be fearing Rovers, as I suspect they wouldn't be anyways. But yeah, they'll have no reason to fear Rovers. Look, it was a 1-1 draw the last time the two sides met down in the RSC, and look, as I said there, I touched on already in this episode that it easily could have been a defeat that night. Rovers were 1-0 behind and looked to equalise through a Graham Burke penalty, but there's definitely there's no reason for number one, Waterford to be going in with too much fear against Rovers, but on the same side, on the same or the other side of that coin, Rovers shouldn't be coming up against Waterford overly confident either, as in complacent. I mean, not overly confident, which I don't suspect Rovers to do. Stephen Bradley hasn't really brought this side up on becoming complacent in any game, regardless of the opposition, particularly against bottom of the league. It is top against bottom. But yeah, look, it's gonna suspecting that it's gonna be a tough fixture. 7:45 kickoff as well. And yeah, look, it will be a tough fixture. There's no doubt about that. Watford putting 4 past Sligo. If you bear in mind, Rovers lost to Sligo a couple of weeks ago, or well, more than a couple of weeks now at this point. And heading into that, obviously that dramatic Dublin Derby victory over Bows. But yeah, Rovers were only beaten a few days before that game, and yeah, look, now Rovers head to the RSC for the last time this season. However, I think if Rovers are to get the win, which I think at this point it's increasingly important. You can't just drop points. As I said, Rovers are 5 clear at the top. Pats have a game in hand. You can't be complacent, and us as supporters of the club can't really be complacent either. This is how leagues are essentially lost. This is it's important that Rovers go with a clear game plan and try to be as clinical as they can. Chance creation, and the lads up front, they need to produce more. They need to show more of what they can do, because everyone knows they can do it, and it's just about putting it into practice when they're out on the pitch on a Friday night, regardless of who the opposition is and regardless of the location. It is back-to-back away days for Rovers as well, obviously on the back of the 2-1 defeat to Shelbourne. That was in Tolka Park, of course, and now they're away again to Waterford. So yeah, these are big games, and essentially I don't want to say must win, but Rovers, it was a 2-week break and they came back with a defeat. You want to just dust yourself off quite quickly and return to winning ways, is what I would say. Obviously, it's not as if Rovers won 2 games ago, but the fact of the matter was there's a 2-week break in there, so it does disrupt that rhythm, I think. Look, the other side of that as well, John McGovern, and so will there's chances there for them to be taken. Graham Burke, Michael Noon, and Aaron Green, them who kind of traditionally occupy the front two places. It's always 2 of them really that are named in it. Of course, look, Graham Burke's not your traditional up front striker, because he'll pick up the ball from outside, our own box. Ed McGinty can feed Graham Burke really from a goal kick nearly at times, because he's given that freedom to roam around the pitch. But yeah, look, you need to be more clinical, and as a Waterford are going to be up for this. I think their fans will be getting behind them, making it difficult for Rovers to get a game plan going. They've been notorious to make noise as well. They can't, it's definitely within them to create an atmosphere. I know they're not a club that's notorious for creating a big atmosphere and putting away sides under pressure with the noise they generate. But yeah, look, on the back of what's happening recently, change of manager, winning 4-0 against Sligo, and that was at home as well. That they had that winning feeling. It's not to say they won't want to. Well, they will want to continue that course next week against Rovers, and there's no better for them. They're thinking there's no better team to do it against. If they can do it against Rovers, they'll be able to do it. They'll think they can do it against anyone in the league. And as I said, Rovers went there when Watford were struggling. They couldn't find the win. They hadn't found the win at that point and didn't for a good few games after. And Rovers still, I thought, left with a point, thinking that easily could have been a defeat on the night. Maybe it's a slight pessimist as well, but I don't know. I think, yeah, I think that was a tough night at the office when Rovers were there last time, and they'll need to improve it. And need to improve from Shelbourne as well. Get back to winning ways and make sure that, because ultimately, if Pats were to win next Friday, Rovers weren't, that there's a chance then with the games in hand that Pats mathematically will be overtaking Rovers. Now, of course, it depends on how they sit by the time it comes around that Pats do play the games in hand. As I said, they will have two after Monday week as well. So, look, there is that too. But yeah, it's coming. It's all coming thick and fast for Rovers on the Rovers front between playing games, international duty for Pico, Champions League draws coming around, and Conference League. Hopefully, Rovers won't be in that. And by the time the second round comes around, and yeah, next week there's a double game week as well. But that's it. That brings us to an end of episode 36. As always, thanks for listening as well. Make sure you do follow the Milltown Way across social media and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts as well. As I said, either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, or YouTube as well. Make sure you do like, share, and do leave a comment as well on how you feel about Rovers and where the club is going and how they are at the moment as well. But yeah, other than that, that's it for episode 36 of the Milltown Way. I've been your host, Ryan Brennan, and we'll chat to you after the Waterford game. Thanks for listening.